Well, our scripture reading this morning comes again from Genesis. Thank you. We're going to do a little bit of backsliding this week. Last week we talked about Judah, who is one of Jacob's 12 sons. We're going to step back a little bit further in Genesis and go to Genesis 25. And as I said, as we were praying, we're going to look at the story of Jacob and Esau this morning. And it's a bit of a messy situation. This is the last Sunday in the Bless This Mess series, and really have enjoyed going through this with all of you. It's been fun to go back into the Old Testament for quite a few of these weeks to see how God has been at work throughout the ages. And so, a little teaser for you, starting next week, we have our Advent series starting, and it's called I'm Ready to Go Boldly. And so, hope you'll join us for that season in the life of the church. But this morning we have Genesis chapter 25. We're going to read from verses 19 through 34. And again, this is the account of Jacob and Esau. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. Then the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. So they named him Esau, which means hairy. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob, which means he grasped. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." This is why he was also called Edom. Edom means red. Jacob replied, "First, sell me your birthright." "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is this birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Amen. Technicalities can be a pesky thing. They sometimes show up in places that we least expect them. And the thing about a technicality is it's a small thing, something that happens, maybe a singular event or a single aspect of law that tends to overturn everything that's happened before. And so it's these technicalities that show up in life. Sometimes we feel like they're a little bit pesky. When we look at Jacob and Esau this morning, this is but one part of their story we will look at. We see that they employed these pesky technicalities a few different times. You may remember a few months ago, I got the chance to pick Ethan up and take him to the Nationals and Cardinals playoff game up in Washington, D.C. during the playoffs this year. And I was really looking forward to that. We had to leave about 2 p.m. in order to make sure we could get up there, find a parking place, and get to the stadium on time. And so I went over to Winterpock Elementary and went up to the front desk and said, "I need to pick up my son." And the secretary said, "Okay, go ahead and call him." And she called Ethan's teacher. And she said, "Just one thing, if you could just fill out this card, please. And I said, okay, sure, no problem. And so I looked down and it asked for my the date, and then my signature, the time that I was signing Ethan out, and then it asked for the reason. So I found myself in a bit of a quandary. Do I really write down playoff baseball as the reason for signing my son out of school? Do I write down Cardinals versus Nationals? And so I'm kind of wrestling with this, and then all of a sudden it hit me. So I wrote down, trip to Washington, D.C. Man, it sounded so official. It sounded great. It was technically correct, right? Yeah, these technicalities can be kind of pesky. We see that this morning in the story of Jacob and Esau. We like to think of Jacob, he has his name changed to Israel eventually. He's the father of the nation of Israel, or the people of Israel. And so, when we look at his story this morning, it's a bit puzzling. The Lord told Rebekah, did you pick up on that? That she had two nations in her womb. Two nations were wrestling, and one would serve the other. And you would think it's the younger serving the older, but it's the older who's going to serve the younger. Most times when the Lord speaks through an oracle, he speaks through a prophet. But this time, Rebekah has gone directly to God, and God is speaking directly back to her through this oracle. So it's clear from the time that she was carrying Jacob and Esau that Rebekah had this knowledge that her younger son would be greater than the older. It's clear from Jacob's actions that we see that he had this knowledge as well. At some points in his life, Rebekah must have told him, listen, your brother Esau is going to be the one to serve you. And so we find Jacob this morning trying to get his way. He's heard this story told to him numerous times. But instead of sitting back and waiting for God to do his work, Jacob tries to force his will and his timing. And so when Esau comes in from this hunting trip, hungry, Jacob starts conniving. He takes advantage of this situation. Now, if you look on the cover of your bulletin, you see this kind of caricature of these two brothers. We see Jacob, who's kind of skinny and scrawny. Scripture tells us that he likes to live among the tents. He was a homebody. He was a mama's boy. But his brother Esau was big and strapping. He was red and hairy. And he liked to go out in the fields and hunt. So you can see kind of this contrast already between the two brothers. And it's funny. Esau is the one who approaches Jacob and says, I'm famished. I'm starving. I'm going to die if I don't get something to eat. Jacob takes advantage of the situation. Think of it. His big, strapping brother comes to him and says, I'm going to die. You can almost see Jacob kind of roll his eyes and say, would you like some soup? Esau quickly agrees. Jacob says, I want your birthright. Now, what's the birthright? The birthright is the financial holdings of the family. It's the possessions that the family has, and those go to the oldest child. And so Esau asked for this birthright, Jacob asked for the birthright from Esau. And in this moment of weakness, Esau says, what good is it to me? And he sells it to Jacob. Jacob, Israel, takes advantage of the situation. He connives and he gets his way. He's trying to seek this birthright, this blessing from God. And so he uses some pesky technicalities. You see, it's an oral culture. The second that Esau agreed to this, It was as if he had signed on the dotted line and had it notarized. His birthright was no longer his. Clearly, in that place, Esau had done something wrong. He despises his birthright. But you know, there are other times in life when we struggle, and it feels like we've done nothing wrong, and yet these pesky technicalities continue to show up. I'm reminded of Rich Hill, who was a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. August 23rd, 2017, he was pitching against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was locked in. His fastballs, his curveballs, they were all locating perfectly. One sports writer said it was as if Rich Hill was conducting a pitching clinic for the Pirates. Everything was right where it was supposed to be. So 9 innings, 27 outs, he has a no-hitter. A full baseball game, Rich Hill has a no-hitter. He's done everything it feels like that he's supposed to do. But he gets to the bottom of the 10th. Fastball misses its location, and it's hit out of the park for a home run. He pitched a full, complete game, 9 innings, 27 outs, no hitter. But in the bottom of the 10th, he not only lost the game, he lost the no-hitter. If you go back to the scorebooks, he is not scored as having pitched a no-hitter. He lost it all in the end. You know, when Jacob and Esau, as they continue to grow up together, Esau has already sold his birthright. By this point, their father Isaac, his eyes are becoming dim. He's getting close to the point of death. And so Isaac says to Esau, listen, I need you to go out and get me something to eat. Go out into the fields, hunt some game, and bring me that meat so that I can eat it with you. And while we're eating, I will give you my blessing. Birthright is different from blessing. Birthright is the financials, the possessions of the family. The blessing deals with who is the leader of the family, who is the spiritual leader. The person who has the blessing of the father is the one who is making sure that everyone is protected and taken care of. He tells Esau, Isaac does, go out into the field, kill some game, and let's break bread together so that I can give you my blessing. Well, you may be familiar with this story. Esau heads out into the fields, but who's lurking nearby? Lo and behold, Jacob and his mother, Rebekah. And Rebekah starts to hatch this plan. First it was Jacob conniving, and now Rebekah's conniving alongside him. She tells Jacob, here's what we're going to do. I need you to go and get 2 young goats, and we're going to kill them. We're going to cook them up nice and good, and you take the food to your father Isaac so that he can bless you instead of your brother Esau. Remember, Rebekah loved Jacob, and Isaac loved Esau. And so Rebekah starts to hatch this plan. And yet Jacob says to Rebekah, but my brother Esau is a hairy man while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. Are you kidding me? I would appear to be tricking him. Jacob has been conniving from very early on. He's now a co-conspirator in this plot to wrest Esau's blessing from him. And he says, well, I don't know, I might appear to be tricking my father. But he goes along with the plan. Remember this? Rebekah tells him to take the cloak from Esau and wear it so that he might smell like his brother, a big red-headed brother. He goes and he takes goat skin and he puts it on his hands and on his neck, so that if and when his father reaches out and touches him, he will feel the roughness of skin that might feel like Esau's rather than the smooth skin that Jacob has. And so Jacob goes. He takes this food to Isaac, and after some back and forth, Isaac ends up blessing Jacob, even though he thinks he's blessing Esau. Shortly thereafter, Esau returns from the field, and Isaac is confused. He can't see. He's wondering, who is this new person who is in front of me? And when he finds out that Jacob has yet again deceived him, Esau is furious. Jacob, it says, grows violent with rage, with anger over what has happened. He says, your brother has taken the blessing from you. Remember, this is an oral culture. What's done is done. It is signed, sealed, and delivered. There are no takebacks. There are no do-overs. Esau starts to plead, come on, Dad, isn't there some extra blessing that you can give me? Didn't you hold just a little bit back? And Jacob says, no. I'm sorry. The older will serve the younger. These pesky technicalities. See, the thing is about technicalities, they upend our notions of right and wrong. They change the status quo. There are times in life when we feel like we're running the race God has called us to. Like we're doing the thing we're supposed to do, and then we trip and we fall. We find ourselves face down in the dirt. Kincaid, would you play that video for me?
Facing all odds, so game third one. Tie game of the night. Jack, round one, pick right, makes the play, throw, 2 out, over the third, it gets away, Alan Craig is going to come to the plate, there's the throw, he is! The umpire making the call, they're going to say he's safe. It was interference at third base. This game ends with an obstruction call. This game ends 5-4 because of that right there. The throw home, it looked like the tag had Craig. Yes. But immediately Dana DeMere points down to third base because of this. As the feet go up, Alan Craig gets tangled in the legs of Will Middlebrooks and can't get toward home plate without falling down. Inadvertently or otherwise. Facing all odds.
So this was the 2013 World Series, Game 3, bottom of the 9th inning, 1 out, runners on second, third. As you can see, the first runner that crosses the plate is clearly out. Alan Craig, at the time playing for the Cardinals, tries to round third, or tries to slide into third. The throw to third goes out into the outfield, and so he gets up and tries to run home. But he trips and he falls. Now, John, you know the analogy I'm making here, right? Yeah. Sometimes in life we trip and we fall. We're trying to do the right thing, and we make a mistake. And yet, as Craig crossed home plate, the play was clearly there. He had the tag applied, the catcher did, to Alan Craig. And you're expecting the umpire to say, out. But instead, he's safe because of this pesky technicality. Obstruction by the third baseman. Sometimes in life, we have to get down into the dirt and wrestle. We have to get down into the dirt and wrestle with God. Genesis chapter 32. Jacob has lived this life of conniving and deception. Jacob literally means he grasped But it's actually an idiom for the Hebrew word he deceives. There's been lies and deception. He's been crafty and cunning. He's gone off and married a woman, but he married the wrong one, and so he ends up marrying a second woman. I mean, his life is kind of a bit of a mess. And yet, he goes back and he's getting ready to meet with his brother Esau. And along the way, Jacob got up, he took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Recall this story. As Jacob is wrestling with this man, he's wrestling with God. And they go on and wrestle throughout the night. And Jacob is crying out. God has touched his hip socket because they just keep going back and forth, back and forth. And Jacob is wrestling with him. And the man says, "Let me go." God says, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Jacob was looking in the wrong places. He was trying to force his will. He heard this story that the older would serve the younger. So he goes after the family's finances and possessions. He goes after the blessing that is given from his earthly father so that he can be the leader of this earthly family. He's been looking to earthly blessings instead of waiting for God to declare him blessed. When we think about technicalities, maybe they're not so pesky after all. They upend our notions of right and wrong. They change the situation, all of the circumstances around us. They change the mess that we're in. You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, when we were weak, when we were famished, when we were conniving, when we were deceiving, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, while we were still Jacob, Christ died. Let us pray. Gracious Lord, this week we look at the holiday coming up, and we're grateful for family. We're grateful for the things in our life. But God, the true nature of our thankfulness and gratitude lies in the blessing that you have bestowed upon us. So as we look at the messiness of life, as we look at the church, we know that it's made up of people who do crazy things sometimes. And yet we just need to listen. We need to hear the blessing that you declare on us. And we hear that most fully in the name of Jesus.